Over the archive's long existence, we've accumulated the knowledge and accounts of many mages and those who work with the arcane in order to understand it as best as possible. However, it's a very nuanced topic and for reasons that will soon become apparent, a rather difficult subject to understand in full. Because of this, today's entry will focus on the broad strokes of Ember magic, the root system that every denomination, no matter the culture, draws from in one way or another. Let us broaden our view to the essentials. There are areas known as Abyssal gardens, believed long ago to have been touched by the Veiled Ones. Corrupted by their intrusion, reality itself tears and bends incoherently in ways near impossible to describe, almost as if a glimpse into another world. At their center manifests a large, darkened monolith covered in fingerprint-like engravings, barely veiling warm, vile flesh beneath, with roots stretching far into their surroundings, sprouting thick forests of ashen hollow trees that seem to swirl and glisten under the eye of the moon, giving off a haunting aura that fills one with dread whilst warping and deforming its surroundings. Each fingerprint upon the monolith is a curse, seemingly meant to spread throughout its root network, thought to be the ire of the old gods made flesh, giving rise to the reviled drown, bringing plague and famine, corrupting livestock and man alike. Each garden is different, being worked in otherworldly ways by its curses, save for one thing: the abyssal pearls known as black tears found within and around everything touched by the vile roots. They are akin to eyes and are believed to be the catalyst for the arcane in its most primordial form, allowing them to impart their malice upon the world. Their gaze is said to carry the songs and secrets of the cosmos, and a mere glance can drive one mad, but their value cannot be understated, for they are the key ingredient in the making of Ember, a distilled, much safer substance, working as the base of all magic in the hands of earthly beings. The refinement process is known as rekindling, and is achieved through imbuing the black tears with one's faith, often in the form of ceremonies and prayer, working towards expelling the abyssal spirits within. A difficult task, usually requiring either a lot of time or a considerable amount of people, for if the spirits are not completely driven out, they will horrifically corrupt the mind of those who attempt spellcasting. If successful, however, the black tears will start to burn from within, swirling and smouldering with newfound color, even in some cases developing runes tied to one's devotion. However, let us turn to some of the warring sides for examples of how rekindling is carried out. In Holgrim, the process is done through a festival lasting days, celebrating the war against the abyssal heavens, smashing effigies of the Veiled Ones, particularly the last one they believe to remain alive, chanting prayers of hatred and making an example of their followers in gladiatorial games, whilst in Akron they subject themselves to flagellation and beg forgiveness from the abyss in hopes to atone for the sins of their ancestors, all working in conjunction to kindle the most potent ember they possibly can. It would seem magic and faith are inseparably linked, both in the rekindling process and for the casting of spells, so let us delve a bit deeper into faith and its connection to magic. Every known creature dissected and studied, from the smallest insect to the largest beast, is known to contain a thin black web called a spirit within them, growing around organs, bones, veins and muscles. In this state, it's rather dormant, not contributing to much, but when the flames of faith, hope or desperation are stoked, it will start to grow and burn, giving strength when one might need it most. A man praying to his god when facing overwhelming odds, or a lamb in the biting cold of winter looking for any source of food, and in the case of faith, can seemingly impart blessings upon a subject of worship. I believe it is due to this very reason that lords and draumic entities fight for the admiration of other beings. It seems in people's nature to seek something to give their devotion to, no matter how unimportant or grand. An example could be an ailing village worshipping their largest hog as a miracle in times of famine. This act would subconsciously draw upon their spirits to malform the livestock till it fits their perception of it as a miracle. Or the farmers of Gravesparrow, cavorting together in folk rituals to help their crops grow and prosper, treating the harvest as divine. With that being said, let's go to the spirit and its role in spellcasting. From my studies, I find it quite safe to conclude that the spirit's ability to subtly manifest one's will, hopes and beliefs into the physical world can draw upon the abyssal power of the rekindled black tears, using it as a sort of fuel to manipulate the world around them in a greater, more direct way in the form of spells. Most mages I've spoken to tell me that spells are a discovery that reveals itself in strong emotion. An example could be wrath manifesting itself in spells of violence, or most commonly once again in devotion itself, and as such the beliefs of a mage can often be parsed from the very magic they wield. Mages from Holgrim bestrewn in candles frequently utilize spells formed from fire and light, drawing upon their belief in the candle sun. The flagellants of Akron conjure bramble weapons from nothing to rend the flesh of their foes, and the Knights of Thalbark echo their desires to return home with spells of shattered gold, and so on. The most devout of mages are known to intentionally put themselves through trials and hardships in an effort to form their own spells, as in most cultures their formation is viewed as an important accomplishment. Spells are often taught in the form of prayer and are passed down, being refined in the process along with their offshoots. Entire religions and saints based around individual schools of spells derived from one root discovery. Furthermore, there are spells that are ambiently cast around a mage with little to no conscious input, which are believed to be built upon the very spirit itself as it gets acclimatized to the foreign ember. Known simply as ambient spells, they have subtle to drastic effects on a mage's surroundings, depending on how dense their spirit threads have grown. It can be anything from grief sapping the environment of colour and love bolstering the morale of allies, to in the most drastic of cases something more comparable to that of the abyssal monoliths becoming one with the heavens. Now that we have a broad idea of how spells work, let us get into the final requirements: casting implements. Catalysts are not strictly required for every type of spell, but are preferred for most, as they can help direct the spell much like an instrument in song. Once one has connected the threads of the spirit with a suitable source of external ember to use as fuel, they can additionally weave the threads into their catalyst, making it function much like an extension of their body. This does require a sizable and permanent opening in the flesh, meaning that every catalyst, no matter how large or small, must be grafted through invasive procedures. The more threads can connect to it, the more natural it will feel to the user, with many going as far as to replace limbs with prosthetics entirely. The catalyst's form will depend on the kinds of spells one intends to use. Staves and religious talismans are frequent for their convenience and versatility, but more specialized ones can be necessary. Those who wish to call upon the dead use flutes for their ability to mimic the corpse hymn of the drowned. All sorts of weapons and armor are common to bolster offensive and defensive spells. Poisons or aromatics use incense burners. Even one's own body can be used as a catalyst of sorts, for spells that heighten the body's abilities and strengths and so on. However, excessive spell use will build up heat in the spirit's web, both becoming quite uncomfortable and making it less stable, often having detrimental effects on the body mimicking the spells they most often use, such as the mages of the candle song turning to wax, sprouting metal candle holders from their bones, to the flagellants bursting thorns from within. The more experienced a mage gets, the more the web will grow, and therefore the more heat they can store before needing to let it dissipate. Implants are often grafted, helping in the process. However, if one isn't careful enough, the heat will burn its way through the flesh, creating an organic heat wave, with those who push themselves often sporting quite a few. With that being said, this is where the entry shall come to an end, as that covers the fundamentals of spellcasting and magic. All in all, it's safe to say that magic is an extremely potent and tempting source of power that permeates our lives even without our knowledge. However, due to its unknowable abyssal origin, it's also very destructive to the body, mind, and soul. Experienced mages can hardly be called human anymore as they become one with their equipment, their insides indistinguishable from their outsides, as the very ground they walk is besmirched by their presence. A comparison would sooner be drawn between them and the draumic monsters born of the wicked root than the regular folk trying to make their home amongst the ash.